It's a stark reality that for many Black men, talking about mental health, therapy.
Yeah, it's often just silent. A really complex topic, sort of taboo.
Exactly. We watched this really powerful discussion on bet networks for the fellas.
Oh yeah, with G. Herbo, Keir Gaines, and Rome Flynn. Really insightful.
Totally. And that's really where our deep dive kicks off today.
Right. Our goal isn't just to recap it, though. We want to really, understand the specific hurdles Black men face with mental health.
And dig into why there's sometimes this reluctance, this avoidance of therapy.
And hopefully, spotlight some ways to break down those stigmas, all based on what they talk about.
We've got G. Herbo, the artist and advocate.
Keir Gaines, the licensed therapist.
And Rome Flynn, the actor. Quite a panel.
Definitely. And they dropped a really serious statistic right at the top.
Yeah, that was sobering. Suicide in 2022, the third leading cause of death for Black males aged 10 to 24.
Mm-hmm. And studies suggesting 5 to 10% of Black men dealing with depression.
Wow. Okay, so that really sets the stage. The urgency is clear.
It really is.
So where did they start? Keir Gaines brought up something pretty fundamental, right? This historical mistrust.
Yes, absolutely. The deep mistrust within the Black community towards, medical systems in general.
And you have to think about how that history, still echoes today.
For sure. Keir specifically mentioned the fear of institutionalization.
Like the fear that if you seek help for mental stuff, you could end up confined, marginalized.
Exactly. And that's not just some vague worry,
Right.
It's rooted in real historical instances where the system hasn't been fair.
Right. Not just paranoia. It comes from somewhere real.
Precisely.
And tied into that, there's just not knowing much about therapy.
Yeah, the lack of exposure. Keir shared that story from grad school.
Oh, right. How he realized he'd never actually seen a therapy session outside of his own training.
Exactly. And that breeds this, fear of the unknown.
Makes sense. If you don't know what it looks like, how it works, what they ask.
You're probably going to be pretty apprehensive. It's natural to hesitate when something's unfamiliar, even intimidating.
Plus, Keir mentioned the whole vulnerability piece.
Mm-hmm. The societal pressures, the environment. A lot of Black men feel discouraged from showing emotion openly.
So the idea of opening up to a stranger about deep stuff, that feels like a huge leap.
A really significant hurdle, yeah.
But I liked how Keir kind of broke it down, simplified it.
Also.
He just said, look, therapy is basically a conversation.
Right. Not an interrogation, not a judgment zone.
Just a conversation, trying to demystify it.
Which is so important.
Yeah.
Countering that perception of being grilled or scrutinized, making it feel more approachable.
Okay, so then Rome Flynn and G. Herbo talked about finding their own kind of therapy in their art.
Yeah, that was interesting. Acting for Rome, music for G. Herbo.
Like using those creative outlets to process emotions.
It's a powerful thing. Art is therapy. Rome exploring feelings through characters.
And Herbo using music as this direct channel for his experiences, his feelings, almost like a public diary.
Sort of, yeah. A way to get it out.
But Rome Flynn also brought up a really interesting point, a concern.
What was that?
This, worry about therapy maybe messing with his creative process.
Ah, right. If he deals with the underlying issues, will it somehow dampen the spark that fuels his art?
Yeah. Disrupting a system that feels like it's working, even if it's maybe a bit damaging underneath.
That's a really common fear, actually, especially for artists who channel pain or struggle into their work.
But Keir had a great counter to that, didn't he?
He did. He framed therapy not as disruptive, but as something that could actually unlock more potential.
Yeah, the analogies, the raggedy car versus the tomahawk steak.
Right. The car gets you there, but maybe there's something much richer, more fulfilling possible.
And the closed door or the closet idea.
Yeah, therapy lets you open those doors, look inside, process what's there in a, manageable way.
It's not about losing yourself. It's about gaining self-awareness.
Expanding your capacity, potentially. That was his point.
Then G. Herbo. Wow, he shared some really heavy stuff about his upbringing.
Yeah, growing up where trauma was just normalized.
Constant shootings, violence being part of everyday life.
Which makes it so hard to even know what is emotionally healthy, what's normal.
Because your baseline is skewed by the environment.
Exactly. That constant exposure, it recalibrates everything. You adapt, but it obscures the need for actual healing.
And that led right into talking about intergenerational trauma.
Herbo talking about his mom, his grandmother.
How they didn't really talk about or process their own stuff.
Right, and how that pattern just gets passed down, often without anyone realizing it.
That hit hard. The idea of carrying stuff that isn't even yours originally.
It's a powerful cycle.
Oh.
His example of his mom not discussing her father really illustrates it.
And he saw that push-through mentality in himself too, right? Learned from his dad.
Yeah, just suppress the emotions, keep moving. Don't really process the pain underneath.
That whole stoic, be strong pressure we talked about earlier.
Exactly. It looks like resilience on the surface, but it can block real healing.
But then he mentioned that advice from his girlfriend's dad.
Oh, the leave it on the front porch thing.
Yeah. Such a simple but powerful image. Don't bring the outside stress and negativity into your home sanctuary.
It really is. Setting those boundaries, protecting your space.
And Urbos seem to have this realization, like, you can't just bottle emotions up forever.
No, they don't just vanish. They come out somehow.
Often in ways you don't intend, right? Yeah. Taking it out on loved ones.
Unfortunately, yes. So dealing with them isn't just for you, it's for the people around you, too.
Which makes his effort to raise his son differently even more significant.
Totally. Breaking that cycle, creating a space where it's okay, actually encourage to express feelings.
Such a contrast to his own shake that stuff out experience.
It's a really conscious, positive shift in parenting, nurturing that emotional intelligence.
He also talked about fear being used as a discipline tactic by his dad.
Yeah, those really intense statements.
That clearly stuck with him, had a long-term impact.
It highlights how fear, even if meant for discipline, can create lasting anxiety and affect how open you feel you can be.
Then they got into this whole hard way mentality.
Yeah, the idea that something's only worthwhile if you really struggled for it.
Both Brian McIntosh and G. Herbo kind of identified with that.
It's this belief that difficulty equals value, which, resilience is good, but...
But it can make you reject help or make things harder than they need to be.
Exactly. Maybe even lead to some self-sabotage.
But Rome Flynn had a different take, valuing the journey itself.
Right, saying that maybe the easy button means you miss out on important growth along the way.
Finding value in the process, the navigating of challenges.
Yeah, the lessons learned, the resilience built.
Yeah.
That's often as important as the end goal.
They also touched on that complex link between trauma and the drive to succeed.
Acknowledging the tough experiences can be a motivator.
But they don't have to be, right? Like, look at LeBron James's son, different path, still aiming high.
Exactly. Success doesn't require trauma. You can achieve great things from a healthy, supportive place, too.
It was really striking when G. Herbo talked about his past trauma catching up to him after he moved.
Yeah, moving to LA, a safer place.
And suddenly, with the constant stress gone, the nightmare started.
It shows how ongoing chaos can kind of mask underlying trauma. So when things get quiet, that the inner stuff surfaces.
Makes sense. It finally has space to demand attention.
Exactly.
And that led to those reflective what-if moments.
Yeah, thinking about how different choices, different environments might have changed everything.
Which just highlights how much our paths depend on circumstances and decisions.
For sure. So much contingency in life.
I was really impressed by G. Herbo's commitment to being totally honest with his kids.
Even about the hard stuff, like his past incarceration.
Yeah, building that foundation of trust, open communication.
Sharing his truth, even the difficult parts.
Yeah.
That creates real honesty in the family.
And Brian McIntosh backed that up, saying honesty is actually a form of protection for kids.
Yeah. Right. It gives them awareness, builds trust. Trying to shield them from everything can sometimes backfire.
Age-appropriate honesty equips them better.
Definitely.
Brian also talked about his own struggle finding that balance.
The tough love versus emotional support.
Yeah, with his son. That feels like such a universal parenting challenge.
Oh, absolutely. That tightrope walk between fostering resilience and providing empathy, it's constant for most parents.
And then hearing Kier and Rome, dads of daughters, talk about raising them with emotional intelligence.
Yeah, teaching strength and validating feelings, encouraging open talk.
It's about empowering them to be both strong and emotionally aware, creating that safe space.
Beautifully put. Fostering emotional literacy early on.
Rome also made a great point about fear as a communication tool.
That it has limited long-term effectiveness.
Yeah, and how you really need to build that genuine emotional connection instead.
Because fear might get compliance now, but it damages the relationship and hinders healthy emotional growth.
And crucially, parents need to model that emotional intelligence themselves.
Oh, absolutely critical. Kids watch everything. Our actions speak way louder than our words.
How we handle stress, express feelings, show empathy. That's the real lesson.
Couldn't agree more.
Rome also shared how he's really intentional about social media with his daughter.
Shielding her from the public eye.
Yeah, protecting her privacy, letting her have a normal childhood, which contrasts with G. Herbo's son, who kind of became famous unintentionally.
It really highlights the unique pressures for parents in the public eye. A thoughtful approach to privacy.
They also didn't shy away from co-parenting challenges,
Right, the dynamic between G. Herbo and his son's mom.
underscoring how vital communication is even when it's uncomfortable.
And always putting the kids' well-being first.
Effective co-parenting really demands that open, respectful talk, focusing on the child above personal conflicts.
It's essential for creating stability for the kids.
But it was good to hear about the positive shift in G. Herbo's family dynamics, too.
The G. Herbo prayer, never giving up on family.
Yeah, actively working towards harmony for the kids. It shows commitment pays off.
It really does. Perseverance and prioritizing the children's well-being. An encouraging example.
Kier then brought it all back to basics, really. Mental health and communication.
Active listening, expressing feelings healthily, managing conflict, focusing on repair.
As the foundation for all relationships.
Absolutely. That's the bedrock. Feeling heard, understood, respected, navigating disagreements constructively. It's crucial.
Okay, so for anyone listening thinking about therapy, Kier had some good advice on managing expectations.
Yeah, it's not usually a one-session fix, right?
Right. He's that great analogy therapy as home renovation.
Gradually knocking down walls to see the foundation, the rusty pipes. Not an instant makeover.
It's about uncovering the deeper stuff, building a solid foundation for lasting change.
And recognizing that the real work often happens outside the session, applying those new perspectives.
And he tackled the cost issue, too, debunking the myth that it's just totally inaccessible.
Yeah, pointing out employee assistance programs, EAPs.
Which many employers offer, and community health centers with subsidized or free options.
Plus group therapy as another, often more affordable possibility.
That's such important info, breaking down those financial barriers.
Definitely. And group therapy offers that unique shared experience, too.
Kier really emphasized that, didn't he? Especially for young Black men in groups together.
Yeah, that feeling of, I'm not alone in this. The power of sharing uncomfortable truths with peers who get it.
That sense of community, shared understanding, it can be incredibly validating.
And empowering. Learning from others navigating similar paths.
So wrapping up, they all left us with some really potent final thoughts.
G. Herbo saying, fight back. Believe you are stronger. Stay focused.
Kier reminding us, you're not supposed to do everything by yourself, and seeking help isn't weakness.
And Bryant McIntosh with You're Not Alone and just take a step forward.
Really powerful messages to end on.
They really capture the essence of the whole conversation. Resilience, the strength in asking for help and knowing you're not isolated.
So, yeah, bringing this deep dive to a close, we've unpacked a lot. The reasons behind therapy avoidance for Black men, the history, the unfamiliarity, the pressures.
But also, crucially, the importance of breaking those stigmas and the real transformative benefits of seeking support.
And just hammering it home one last time, seeking help is absolutely a sign of strength.
Unequivocally. Sharing experiences, having open conversations, those are courageous steps toward healing and growth.
So, on that note, we'll leave you with a final thought to chew on.
Think about any emotional patterns or beliefs you might be carrying, maybe ones you inherited without realizing it.
And then just consider, what's one small, concrete step you could take, maybe even today, towards greater emotional well-being for yourself?
Maybe it's having that open conversation Kier talked about with someone you trust, or maybe it's looking into some of those resources you mentioned.
Whatever that step looks like for you, we encourage you to consider taking it.